Hello, everybody. Thank you for stopping by my presentation. My name is Rafael Andaverde, and I'm a doctoral student in the Department of Agricultural Communication, Education, and Leadership. For my SIA analysis presentation, I choose the project Graded Beirut Water Supply Augmentation Project. Um, the Graded Beirut Water Supply Project was the initial project looking to provide water to communities in Lebanon. This SIA analysis is focusing on the augmentation of that project, and it's the construction of the Bisri Dam. Um, I hope you enjoyed this presentation as much as I did conducting this analysis. Lebanon is an Asian country located in the Middle East region. It's bordered by Syria, Israel, and the Mediterranean Sea. Lebanon population has been subject to severe water supply shortage. Some communities receive water only 2 or 3 times per week. Looking to improve those conditions, they decided to propose this augmentation project. This project is looking to provide 125 million cubic meters of water. Some of the advantage of this project is that it's going to fill naturally on the rainy season, and there is already a treatment plant that is going to be in charge of treating the water for these communities. Uh, a little bit more about the project. Well, this map that you have is where the project is going to be located, or is located, because this is a project that is already going on. As you can see, this is the Bisri Reservoir. This is the one that it fills up by itself during the raining season. And I'm indicating here where the dam is going to be constructed. This project has an estimated cost of $617 million, was approved in September 30, 2014, and is going to be going on until June 30, 2024. It's located 34 kilometers south of Beirut, that is the biggest city in Lebanon, immediately upstream of the village of Bisri. One of the main goals of this project is to provide water to near 500,000 people that live with less than $4 a day. A little bit more about this project. The project proponents on behalf of the government of Lebanon was the Council for Development and Reconstruction, the Ministry of Energy and Water, and Beirut and Mount Lebanon Water Establishment. The project coordination relies on the Council for Development and Reconstruction, and all of them entrusted the environmental and social impact assessment to SIA and partners. This is a firm dedicated to these kind of assessments in the Middle East region. The funding for this project comes from the World Bank, so you will notice that a lot of the regulations that have been used to conduct these social impacts assessment, environmental and social impacts assessment, it's within the World Bank regulations. This is a chart that is provided by the document, and it's showing all the people that are part of the environmental and social impacts assessment. And as you can see, there are only 2 people with social research expertise or background. These are the 2 individuals focusing on the social impact assessment, and it represents a little bit more than 14% of the whole team. The document also presents a comprehensive comparative analysis of the economic, social, technical, and environmental aspects of potential solutions to the augmentation of the Greater Beirut. Greater Beirut is the main and the long-term more reliable source of water. And the 2 sets of alternatives they are proposing are divided in dam and no dam alternatives. These 2 charts are showing you the 4 alternatives proposed on the dam alternatives. And as you can see, the one that it's highlighted, it's the one that is already going on. It was the one selected. And as you can see, you can have the advantage, disadvantage, and the conclusion for each of them. The Bisri Dam was this alternative with that was able to ensure a long-term water supply for all of these communities. In the no dam alternatives, desalinization was the alternative with the best conditions. However, the Secretary of Water and Energy uh, put an put an on hold on this one because of the high amount of energy needed to make the desalinization process happen. According to the alternatives, the analysis showed that a combination of non-dam and dam action was required to increase the volume of water provided by the project on the long term. However, none of the non-dam alternatives uh, was good enough or met it all the criteria to be put it in action with an DEM action. So the project decided to go with the alternative of only DEM action, and that was the Bisri DEM. On the social impact assessments, two things that I would like to highlight before talking a little bit more about them is that there are two characteristics that the document highlight, and it's the cultural and archaeological sites preserved and how local communities were compensated. This project has a big program for relocation. People were living near to the reservoir, but also they had land for different purposes, and they were not able anymore to use, so there was a big relocation program. Something else that is really interesting is how each of the impacts has a likelihood and a likelihood severity scale, and they have been established one of the values that you can see for each of the impacts uh, related to the program, to the project, sorry. The social impacts were classified in 4 different categories, including residential resettlement or land take, loss of livelihoods, impacts of foreign workers, and land value fluctuation. This chart is an example of how the document present the impacts. And as you can see, this is the category, and these are all the potential impact, the likelihood for each impact, and the likely severity, the mitigation measures, and who are going to be in charge of those mitigations. For this presentation, I'm presenting this as an example, but this is available in the document for each of the impact categories. And I'm gonna use this one just to exemplify, and it's loss of temporary employment. And as you can see, the likelihood is unavoidable, and the likely severity is major. You can see general mitigation measures for several, it's a combined mitigation measures for several different impacts, and you can see who are going to be in charge of those mitigation measures. The environmental impacts were also classified in 6 different categories, including erosions and sediments, biodiversity and habitats, consumption of materials, water and power supplies, reservoir stratification, and dam safety. For each of these categories, the document provides a chart with the same information that for social impacts. The monitoring and mitigation plan has 5 different objectives, and it's basically monitor each or any significant change to the project, physical, chemical, biological, and social environment, determine if such changes result from the project or non-project causes, determine if the impact of non-compliance with national and international standards, assess the effectiveness of impact avoidance and mitigation, and finally highlight the unforeseen areas of concern and any need for additional measures. Something very interesting is this image provided by the document exemplifying how the mitigation and monitoring plan works. And as you can see, the red line shows how the process work. The green line, sorry, show how the information will be shared by different stakeholders. And finally, the blue lines shows who are going to be receiving these reports and who are providing these reports to them. Based on everything we have been learning over the semester, I decided to present to you the SIA strengths. For me, some of the strengths that the document has is a system to evaluate the likelihood and the likely severity of each identified impact. I haven't mentioned these, but each mitigation measures, it's presented with their cost to be implemented in the document. And I think that's essential information for stakeholders and decision makers to understand how the project will be impacting them. Effective inclusion of minority groups affected by the project. They uh, describe which groups they have been interacting with and have been participating with them. Um, an extensive literature review related to the project's alternative impacts and mitigation measure is provided, and it's really complete. You are able to understand every single alternative impact and mitigation measure and where the thought process is coming from with for all of these elements. The SIA document also has some weaknesses, and I think these are important to address. The SIA report provides poor description of the research methods implemented, mainly to collect information on social impacts. There is an imbalance, and we notice that on the team, but it's also towards the whole document. They have been made in more emphasis to ecological and environmental impacts. Actually, there is another document that it's called the relocation program, and it's like a complement document to complementary document to this environmental and social impacts assessment, and it provides more information about how the social impacts have been measured. But in the document that I analyzed, this imbalance it's pretty evident, and the social impacts hasn't been getting the same attention and relevance than the environmental issues impacts. There is an insufficient public involvement in all stages of the project development. Within the SIA process, the report does not describe the implemented public involvement methodologies in detail. There are mentioned some of the meetings and how many times the meetings were conducted. There is no more information about how the information was collected. Well, as I mentioned at the beginning, the project was approved for construction, and based on all the information that I read for this analysis and the main document that is available actually in the World Bank website, because they are the funding institution, I will assign a B plus to this analysis and to this social impact assessment. I think there are so many aspects that needs to be improved, including the methods, to collect the data, the public involvement methodologies, and also the different variables they have been evaluating for the social impacts. Besides that, the project has been able to provide clean and continuous water for 1.6 million people in Lebanon, and I think that's great. Thank you so much for stopping by my presentation. I hope you enjoyed as much as I did conducting this analysis, and please let me know if you have any question.